Viewers like you make this program possible. Support your local PBS station.
Welcome to Barbecue with Franklin. Here in Texas, beef is a huge part of barbecue, and it's easy to just go to the grocery store and pick any random piece of meat, but there's so much more to it than that. On this episode, we're going to dig a little deeper and talk to some experts about beef. Louie Millers and Taylor is one of the granddaddies of Texas barbecue. The smoke is soaked into the walls, the menu is super traditional, and you won't find much more in the rub than salt and pepper. 3 generations of Millers have been at the helm here, and these days, Wayne Miller is the man behind the pit. Over the years, I've become friends with Wayne, so let's go talk to him about beef ribs. Hey, buddy.
What's up? How you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, man. Just cooking a little beef. You know all about that, right?
I've heard of it before.
Yeah, that's what I understand. Beef ribs, oddly enough, are the one menu item that has been consistent from the time that we first opened.
Really? I didn't know that.
It's the oldest standing item that we have on our menu. Now, it's gone through many iterations, many different cuts, many different butchering, but it's still been a beef short rib. The building that we're in right now was built in 1906, just coincidentally the same year my grandfather was born. My grandfather's not a native Texan. He was born in Collinsville, Illinois, son of a barber.
But he got here as soon as he could.
He got here as soon as he could by way of Montana. He bought a little red and white grocery store, fresh meat market, and refrigeration was just horrible in 1946. As all these meat markets in the Central Texas area did, you had to minimize spoilage. So what you did, you smoked it, you dried it, and you made it into sausage.
Mm-hmm.
Grandpa retired, 74. Dad took over. He was a butcher and was working with Fred Fontaine.
Fred Fontaine is kind of like the grandfather of Central Texas barbecue. I mean, like the stuff that guy was doing, like we still do today.
We utilize all of the same equipment that we've been utilizing for years. We've added some new pieces to help us with volume.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the process, the wood, all of that's the same.
Same thing.
It hasn't really changed. And I think that's one of the beauties of what we do.
So you want to tell me a little bit about how you cook beef ribs?
Yeah. It's about heat. It's about time. Salt and pepper is all we use.
Yeah.
And
pretty heavy on the pepper, though.
Very heavy on the pepper.
Yeah.
I've said it a million times, you know. For us, black pepper is a 5th food group.
The way that pepper cooks into the fat and it melts together, it gets almost buttery and it takes on a whole nother like flavor.
The fat just coats every little piece of pepper, which really mutes down the heat index, but it acts more as an aggregate in concrete. Mm-hmm. It helps build this bark on the outside of these things. As you can see, we use a horizontal configuration, you know, something that you're familiar with. Instead of being closer to, say, a 220, 225 temperature in the back end, these are up closer to 325.
Right.
And it helps render out that fat a little bit more. I do all meat side up.
Okay.
And that bone actually acts as both as an insulator and absorbs that heat and then pushes it back up through in a more consistent fashion.
Yeah.
That bone makes all the difference in the world in my opinion.
You get so much flavor out of the bone.
Yeah.
I mean, you get like the marrow cooking out of it and everything. And
have you ever cooked these without the bone?
No, I never have. I bet it's a totally different thing.
It's a whole different thing. I mean, it doesn't break down the same. It doesn't taste the same. It's just a different piece of meat. Each one of these is like a child, right? You want to give it everything it needs to be president. Right? And so
you're gonna go to the moon.
Exactly. So what does this rack need that rack doesn't? Well, it needs a little bit more heat. It needs it on this side.
Yeah.
Or it needs to be set back. It needs to rest a little bit more. It's going too fast. Find out what it needs and give it to it.
Wayne Miller, king of analogies.
Yeah, so I'm
You got one for everything.
I do have one for everything. I feel blessed to be in a third generation spot, standing on the shoulders of those men that came before me, doing everything that they did. So much of what Texas barbecue is wouldn't be around if it wasn't for those people before me here and in other places as well. It's more rewarding in so many levels than I would have never thought.
Well, I can say from my own personal opinion that I think you've taken this place to new levels. You've taken the torch and run with it, my good friend.
Thank you very much.
And I think I'm going to go stand in line and reap the benefits of it.
I think you should. Let me grab one for you. I got just the one for you.
I got one. Beef ribs are one of the more straightforward cooks at the restaurant. They go on, we take care of them, and about 8 hours later, they're ready to come off for lunch. We're here at Texas A&M University for Beef 101. Class is about to start with our instructor, Bossy the Cow, and we're going to learn about beef carcass anatomy. Let's go. Come on, Bossy. Texas A&M has been teaching Beef 101 for 20 years, and they cover all the basics of beef.
We've not fed her too well.
They follow a cow from the farm to harvest all the way to the plate. Today we're dropping in for a breakdown of where all the cuts of beef come from.
You almost have to start at anatomy, and so that's where we're going to start today. When we rib at the 12th and 13th rib, we have a hind quarter and a forequarter. And we're going to cut all the way across today to remove the chuck, the brisket, the foreshank from the rib and the plate that are all in this forequarter.
There's so many cuts that come from a side of beef, more than a dozen different steaks and all sorts of ribs. For barbecue, it all starts here, at the shoulder. Down here's the brisket, and there's only one on each side. Just behind the brisket are the ribs. The top section is where the rib roast and back ribs come from, but down underneath are the short ribs and chuck ribs. Them's barbecuing ribs. As we head back towards the hindquarter, we start to see some familiar steaks: T-bone, porterhouse, and sirloin. And then the round, where stuff like the rump roast comes from. A cow is a big, big animal, and a lot of different cuts of meat come from a single side. Now that we know a little bit about beef anatomy, we're gonna butcher up some forequarters. Let's do this.
Well, one thing that we found is it discolors the surface. It starts to denature the proteins. And Dr. Griffin always kids that when you're done with the forequarter, you're like, I'm done cutting meat. I'm really glad I'm in the position that I'm in, which is absolutely true. There's a lot of different muscles that we'll take apart today. As we separate the chuck, the brisket, the foreshank from the rib and then the plate, we want to go right between the 5th and the 6th. And I've kind of marked that off here. I will have to admit, when it's been a stressful week, I love cutting beef. I do, because it's like an exercise, can relieve some stress. Usually when we're cutting, I'm the instigator of all the bragging and stuff, only because it gets them riled up and it keeps, it can be a long day. Did you get all the way through that sternum?
Maybe not.
There we go. Okay, so we've done a major cut here, right? We've separated the ribeye roll from the plate. Now, along here, this muscle here is that brisket muscle, okay, called the deep pectoral. We'll go approximately an inch from there. Reason why we go to 1 inch is according to the IMPs, the meat specifications, you have to have a fat tab on the brisket. If your brisket doesn't have a fat tab, it was cut too short. So you're really being cheated quite a bit of that muscle, and that's all in the way that it was cut. It's not that a brisket comes like with a fat tab, it's the way that we process and cut those, that's why they have that. We're looking for the cartilage of the first rib, and we're gonna kind of follow that down this direction. Now look, it lines up pretty well with close to an inch from the deep pectoral. Now we always tease about how animals don't have hundreds of sets of ribs, right? They have 13 on each side. The way that they're fabricated determines the type of ribs that they are, where they're located anatomically. These are in the chuck short ribs. So the next thing that we're gonna do is go ahead and remove the brisket off of the chuck. And be sure you stay in the seam, because if you're out of that seam, you can ruin the point of our brisket. So if you wanna set this here, you see how there's a ledge now, you've got fat and then it dips down? You're gonna end up taking your knife, so you just wanna kind of shave it away. So, back ribs. If we come in and cut a section here, we have rib, short ribs, plate, short ribs. What we're gonna do today is remove the rib initially from the plate, and we're gonna remove it to a 3x4. You can take your knife then and separate that. So Aaron, are these starting to look a little bit more like what you're seeing in terms of barbecue realm?
They're beautiful ribs.
Okay, to finish these, we're actually gonna remove this outer muscle here, and you'll peel it right on off. The thing that a lot of people don't realize is this muscle here, and if we flip this guy right over, it's just kind of a neat thing. So have you ever seen an animal out in the field like shake their body to get rid of the flies? That's this thin muscle here that does that.
It almost looks like bacon on it.
Yeah. Well, if you think about a pork,
I mean, that's the same part.
Yeah, a side of pork, that's where the belly would come from.
So we just left the Rosenthal building. We were breaking down forequarters, and now we're going to find out where these things come from with my friend, Dr. Jeff Sable. Jeff,
Hi.
thanks for having us.
This steer right here is probably 18, 19 months old.
Okay.
So it would have been born, it would have been weaned at about 5 or 6 months old. It would have been raised, would have had some grass back in its background at some point to get it to grow a little bit more, and then would eventually gotten to more of a grain-based diet more towards the later months of its life.
You know, a lot of people ask me about grass-fed. I think it's really good for fast cooks like steaks and stuff, but it's not so good for long cooks because it doesn't have the fat.
It's very difficult on a grass-finished program to get the animals to the same level of fatness for the grade or for the acceptability by a lot of the markets. You almost look at those as two different markets, and there is a niche market for grass, and we will see that, you know, around the country. And still the biggest market we have is for grain-finished animals, especially
They tend to be the best.
well, especially for export markets too. They love the grain-finished product that would be here from the United States. You were just talking about the forequarters where you get a lot of the product that you cook with. Plate short ribs are ribs kind of 6, 7, and 8. And you'll hear people talk about, I have a 3-rib rib or a 4-rib rib.
Right.
The 3, then they're kind of in this area right here. And that section is about like that. They're about 9 or 10 inches.
And those are the huge brontosaurus ribs that everybody's excited
That's right.
about.
Those are ones when you go to a barbecue place, and they're great big ribs. And if you want to impress friends and cook those low and slow a long time, or go find somebody that does that for a living.
All right, Jeff, sure appreciate it.
Thank you for
Thank you
coming
much.
by.
Hey, it's always a pleasure. Good times.
Okay.
Ordering a beef rib can be pretty daunting. They're big, around 1.5 pounds, and usually enough for a couple of people. But a beef rib done well is really something special. So butchers are always finding different ways, like different seams and different ways to kind of butcher things. I wonder if the brisket exists from those guys in the old times, like in Central Texas, actually coming up with that brisket, because it's two muscles. There's no reason for those two muscles, the point and the flat, to still stay connected.
Well, I was curious about that too, and I asked Joe Capello at City Meat Market in Luling, because he was originally a meat cutter.
Always wearing a hard hat.
Always wearing a hard hat, yeah, you know. You never know when that beef carcass is going to fall on your head. And he said that some of those guidelines that we still use today on carcass are just guidelines from way back. You know, you go talk to even Prine's Barbecue up in Wichita Falls.
And that's one of the oldest places in the state, right?
Yes, Alan Prine even remembers before he got the responsibility of cooking the meat, his job was to take the forequarter and cut it into 12 or 13 pieces before they put it on the smoker. That all changed in the 60s when the big meat companies started with their boxed beef program. So all of a sudden, instead of having to order, you know, whole carcasses in and figuring out where to store them and racks to hang them on, you could all of a sudden order individual cuts of beef in a box, all wrapped up pretty for you. So you could now start ordering a box of 5 different briskets.
Which these days, I mean, if every barbecue place had to get whole animals or just forequarters or whatever, they would know what to do with that.
Right. I mean, they would really be forced to go back to trying to figure out ways to cook all those other cuts.
Yeah.
These days, we've really narrowed it back to just brisket and beef ribs, big, giant plate short ribs.
I started cooking brisket because, it's brisket, it's barbecue. And then also, it was really cheap. It was like 70 cents a pound.
You know, who smokes a chuck roll these days or a beef shank?
Yeah, you get shanked for that kind of thing.
You can. These things that were once really common around Texas, especially in the meat markets, they've really disappeared.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what Texas barbecue is. Maybe it doesn't matter so much how we got there. But the point is that we're there. I don't know. Very nice. No barbecue, pun intended. Looks like I'm here at my local grocery store, looking to buy some beef ribs. So I'm gonna pick a number, talk to the butcher, see what they got.
Number 89, 89. Number 93, 93. Number 94.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going today?
Good, how you doing?
Not too bad.
Nice.
What are we looking for?
Well, I'm looking for some beef ribs.
You're in luck. I
man,
have
that's
several
great.
types. Well, the basis of most of these ribs are going to be off the chuck plate.
Okay.
And this is the plate here. From that plate, you can get your English style cut, which is thick cut, good for braising or smoking, which is going to be cut crosswise and then this way in the individual ribs. Here you have your flanking style rib, which is just cross cut thin, and that's good for grilling or Asian style stir fry.
Gotcha.
And then we have the back ribs here, and that comes off the primal cut of the ribeye.
Okay. Can I look at the 3-bone plate ribs and the back ribs?
Sure. All right. This right here would be one of your 3-bone plate ribs.
It's pretty.
Right there. These big guys here, pretty awesome as well.
So these are the back ribs, and these are up by the spine.
Correct.
You guys hand cut these.
Yes, we do.
Obviously, they're beautiful.
So you're getting all that good ribeye meat there,
Yeah.
but you're not paying for ribeyes.
This is the plate rib, so it's got a lot more meat. It's got a lot more fat in there too.
Definitely.
It comes from a little lower on the rib cage, so
Yes, it does. Better connective tissue.
I'm gonna go with the plate rib.
Good choice, my man.
Yeah.
All right.
So I went with the plate rib here because when you go to a barbecue joint, you get those huge brontosaurus ribs. That's what they're cooking. That's what I cook at the restaurant, so that's what we're cooking today. So when you go to the butcher, ask for plate ribs. It's cool because they're a lot smaller than the ones I normally cook.
Right.
That's going to be like an hour less time that I have to stand there and stare at the fire.
And we always love that.
I like it.
There you are, sir.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. The question I get asked the most is, how do you cook beef ribs? Well, turns out it's just about the easiest thing there is to cook. So today, we're gonna cook beef ribs. This one's pretty small. It's a plate rib from the grocery store. I think it's gonna take about 6 hours to cook. If you had a bigger one, you may be looking at closer to 8 hours. First step, I'm gonna slather the beef ribs in Louisiana hot sauce. You could do anything you want, really. You could use oil, you could not use anything. I like the hot sauce. It gives it kind of an added tang, and it helps the rub stick a little bit. I'm just gonna slather a little bit, kind of get a little wet. I'm gonna sprinkle on some salt. I only use kosher salt. Table salt's too fine. So kind of get all sides. I like to do the salt first so you can see how much you're putting on. And a ton of pepper. You could put any kind of rub you wanted to. And then the fire, I'm looking to cook these beef ribs about 285. I tend to go a little bit hotter than I do with brisket. It's got bones in there, bone side down. Kind of helps shield it, kind of helps insulate it just a little bit. Also helps it cook a lot faster. One thing to be a little bit careful of with the beef ribs is if you cook really, really hot, you'll cook out a lot of bone marrow and stuff out of the bones, and they tend to get a little bit gamey. So, on it goes. All right, so it's been about 5.5 hours. I'm gonna spritz it, keep it moist, keep the edges from getting too crunchy, and I'm gonna actually probe it with my trusty thermometer, just to kind of get a feel for what's going on in there. It's looking really, really nice. Got a good bark, not getting too crunchy. What I'm feeling for is to see if it's feeling pretty tight or if it feels like it's starting to get tender. It's starting to get tender back here, but still got a ways to go up there. Shut the lid and come back in a little bit. So these beef ribs are about 6.5 hours in. I'm thinking they're pretty close to done. I'm gonna probe. Oh yeah, those feel great. So I'm gonna take them off. Always use a towel. Kind of pick them up. You want these ribs to be tender. They should almost fall apart, but not quite. But what I'm really going for is I'm gonna probe inside here, but I'm going right in between the bones. So when you poke through the bark, it should feel like melted butter on the probe. You're not really looking at temperatures. If you were, it'd be around 200 degrees, but each rib's a little bit different. So super duper soft. And right here, there's that second membrane between the bones and the meat. When you go through, you can feel the probe poke right through the second membrane, and that's what you're really going for. If that feels tender, this rib is done. Don't forget to let it rest just for a little bit to let it reabsorb some of the juices too. A lot of people ask about beef ribs. It's really no big deal. Salt and pepper, spritz it with water, some vinegar, apple juice, whatever you want. But the point is, cook it till it's done. Don't cook it too hot where you burn it, and don't cook it low enough where you don't render fat. Piece of cake. We're gonna head out to somewhere and learn something and talk to some experts about beef. Beef experts. An animal. Well, you know, our technical term for that is Fatty McFatterson's.
Nope.
You good?
Yeah, I got it.
Hello, friend.
They'll pay for that videotape, especially if it knocks me down and
Give me that
tramples
phone.
me.